Hey guys, how's it going? It's Janie over here at JaniesSweets. Welcome back to another Friday Fixes episode where you ask me cake questions and I do my best to answer them for you. Now today's episode is going to be a little bit of a controversial topic. It's going to talk about copying other people's work. If you have ever been accused of copying someone's work, I'm really sorry this has happened to you, but hopefully these tips and tricks can help you determine when it is copying someone and then when it is just using that person's work as inspiration. So I'm going to touch base on a few topics here, but definitely take a second to subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed to it, if you're new, and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. So let's get going. Now, this topic came to mind when I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw someone's post, which I will not mention their name because I don't know if they want to be talked about, on a YouTube video, so I'm not going to mention their names per se, but I will tell you that they came up with a design of a class that they were teaching, and you may have seen that what I'm talking about on Instagram, and they came up with a very unique design. It was not something that was popular like a drip cake or anything like that. It was very, very specific, and she was teaching the class and someone turned around, tweaked it just a little bit, but you could still tell it was the same design, and that person probably took a class of hers and then turned around and was selling that class. Now she came on Instagram and she was very furious and called that person out, and when I was reading the comments, it kind of dawned on me, maybe that person has a point. Maybe I have stolen work from people in the past and recreated it. And then I started going through all of the cakes that I made and everything that I did, and I was like, well, what is technically considered stealing another person's design? Now, in my opinion, there is a very fine line between straight up stealing someone's design and imitating or using it as inspiration. If you take, for example, a wedding cake, right? Wedding cakes are not very unique, like they are a variation. They are usually a variation of a couple tiers, one on top of each other, some kind of design on the tiers, and sometimes flowers, and then a topper, right? So within that category, there are different twists and turns that you can take to make it your own. However, it's not a unique concept, right? However, if you come up with an idea of taking a cake and hanging it on its side, I don't want to say upside down because upside down cakes are like a trend now, but like if you want to take a cake and hang it on its side, and that is something that you have come up with, if someone turns around and does it, even if they tweak it just a little bit, like the design of the cake, they still, in my opinion, stole that idea from you, of the cake laying on its side. Before you crucify me, I do have to say that imitation is the best form of flattery. I think that if you give credit to the original person, if you say, hey, so-and-so came up with that design and I fell in love with it, I just had to try it out and see if I could recreate it, I think that's fine. I don't see anything wrong with it, and that person will probably be flattered that you found them inspirational and you found them to be good enough that you wanted to copy their work. However, I think that you are stealing it if you just copy the design, you don't give them credit, and then you turn around and you sell it as if you came up with it. So what that person did that I thought was wrong is that they were teaching a class on how to do it, where that person came up with the idea first. Instead of saying, I learned this technique from so-and-so, they just pretended that they came up with it themselves. And I think that's wrong. Another thing that I think can save you is if it is becoming a trend. Now, if for example, the drip cake, someone had to come up with it first. Someone had to put a chocolate dripping from a cake and then loaded it up with a whole bunch of stuff, and it became so beautiful and so pretty and a trend. Now, what my thing is about that, if a lot of people are doing it, then a person cannot turn around and say that, you know, you're stealing it from them, because you probably didn't even see their specific design. You probably just saw it from someone else, if that makes sense. So having something that is so popular that, you know, you couldn't possibly know where it originated from in the first place is definitely something that can save you from, you know, being accused of copying that person's work. So what's the takeaway from all of this? What do you do when you're faced with a decision, you know, of making a cake for a customer and the customer wants it exactly like this? So to recap everything, I would say just make sure it is not something that is extremely unique. Like, for example, like I said, the cake laying on its side. Make sure that you're not selling it or passing it off as something that is yours, you know, your own design. If you are going to be posting it online, make sure you give credit to the original person and say, I took the inspiration from that person. And then the third thing is make sure that it's not something that's popular, because if it is popular, then I think you're safe from, you know, all of that. Like it's a trend, it's something that everybody's doing all over the place, you're okay. So with that being said, what I personally do just to make sure that I, you know, cover my behind in all areas is that I actually have a clause in my contract that says that I cannot recreate someone else's work. So just to save yourself, just have a clause or explain to your client that I'm really sorry, but I cannot recreate that specific cake. I can, however, you know, work with it as inspiration and then come up with a design that is uniquely yours. The client will appreciate the fact that most people will appreciate the fact that you are considerate of that, you know, designer, but also want them to have something unique that no one has or will ever have. So I hope this video was helpful to you and that you've learned something. If you did, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you did not like it, give it a thumbs down so that I know. Share it with your friends and family so that they can enjoy it as well if you think it will be beneficial to them. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you have not done so that you will not miss out on any of my future videos. That is it for this week's video, you guys. I love you. I'll talk to you next time.